If you've ever had a vague idea for a painting, but no idea how to tackle it, well, I'm at that exact point. So I took my sketchbook to a cafe and sat down for a few hours to plan paintings for an exhibit in spring. I'm very intimidated by this particular exhibition and have no idea what my paintings will look like, but maybe documenting the process here will help, and my own procrastination and doodles can keep you company as you sketch your own ideas. Heading out to a cafe to not be at my usual desk and distracted by work or packaging, well, that also helps and gives me a time limit of a few hours to come up with something at least, hopefully keeping procrastination reasonable. We have a theme for the exhibit, Seoul. I got invited to a group exhibit with both Korean and international artists, and we hope to capture impressions of the city in our all very different art styles, from abstract to portraits in oil to surrealist art. And then there's me, a fantasy illustrator. Illustration and what looks good on a book cover or interior page is very different from what's impactful on a canvas hanging on a wall. I can't do exactly what I usually do, but I also don't want to do a 180-degree turn and switch up my art style just to match a theme. How do you generate ideas? It's such a different type of feeling from when inspiration just comes out of nowhere. To have to sit down and let the creative brain actually get to work. When in doubt, I go back to basics. I wrote down some keywords for the exhibit, but also for the art I'd already created in the past, to see if I can find any connections to then build upon. I brought my largest sketchbook, this Hahnemuhle one that I started earlier this year. I have Korean mythology sketches for the tale of the bear woman, Ungnyo. Korean mythology would honestly be a great midpoint between my usual fantasy book art and the kind of art that might work for an exhibit. Especially since my Ungnyo painting has since found its way to a variety of small gallery group events. But the theme is Seoul, not Korea, and so for now I don't feel like this mythology concept is specific enough. It still helps to write or sketch it, though, for later. Whenever I flip back through old sketchbooks, I unearth ideas I had completely forgotten about and might be worth revisiting. I had the amazing opportunity to exhibit on Jeju Island a year ago, and for that had painted surrealist floating houses, trying to capture my impression of the island's rapid change over recent years. So maybe that could be a path to go down for this Seoul-themed exhibit. The city always changes, and there can be a sense of disconnect whenever I revisit the same spot only to find a cafe, a shop, or an entire neighborhood have disappeared. Then there's the sense of anonymity. Coming from a small town in Europe, Seoul is vast to me. I might share the subway with more people just on one day than live in the entire village I grew up in. I won't see the same face twice, won't encounter an old acquaintance on a bus, and nobody will remember having seen me at the end of the day. That might sound negative, but I enjoy the feeling of floating, of being just a tiny person in a vast mass of other people, with their own stories, concerns, and hopes. There's a reason I felt this urge to sit down and start sketching for this exhibit, for this series of paintings. I'm not sure if you've been following the news out of South Korea, and I hesitate to even say anything concrete as the situation constantly changes, and by the time this video goes online, my voiceover might be very much out of date already. But I still felt unsettled and anxious over the last week and couldn't focus on work that particular afternoon, escaping to a cafe to create a pocket of time for these sketches. Over the last 10 years of living here, I've come to love this country, and a big part of that are the people. The floating sense of anonymity never hiding how much passion and energy and kindness simmers here. So in my sketches, I now feel drawn to a figure. Floating buildings, old and new, might capture the architecture of the city, but there has to be more I can find here. If my love for the place is shaped by people, how can I express that in a painting? Is the figure a part of the city? Is the city built around or growing from them? Generating ideas is a messy process. I'm showing you this spread of thumbnail sketches, and for a moment I have to worry that it just looks like stick figures and blobs to you. But with how often we share the more aesthetic sketchbook pages, this is the other side of that coin. Here the actual drawings don't matter. Anyone can do this, anyone can sit down and mull over ideas this way, no matter their art style, or if they consider themselves a beginner or not. And yes, the result won't be pretty to look at, but it will give you something to then build upon. Slowly, I'm testing out some actual portrait sketches for these ideas. While I mostly focus on small, barely legible thumbnail sketches at this stage, drawing something just a bit more detailed can help me see if an idea actually could work, or if my mental image is too vague yet. This one here, of hair-forming cables intertwining and connecting, is one that I can't yet quite picture in my mind. Is she a part of the clouds, an abstract vision? Is she in black and white, or made of just cable shapes? Or a realistic portrait contrasted with these power cables? I'm still not sure what the answer to that is. And this is why I like to sketch ideas very early. It gives me weeks and months to come back to them, to discard and reinvent. The exhibit is planned for May, so my own paintings will have to be finished and shipped by April, as I live a bit farther away. On the other hand, I really like this face here overgrown with buildings, as if a person was lying down in a flower field with each flower a building, and slowly turned into a part of that meadow. I remember my very first impression of Seoul as our flight approached, years and years ago, and I saw just endless rows and clusters of apartment buildings, white walls, dark windows, and a grey fog from the humid ocean air as we circled over Gyeonggi-do and to Incheon Airport. It left a deep visual impact on me. And I still stare out of plane windows whenever we get close to Gimpo Airport. So I wanted these forests of buildings, and I wanted a muted color palette, and figures or portraits to represent who lives here and who brings life to them. I'm slowly getting closer to a concept I can work with. but only after trying and discarding other ideas. In N.K. Jemisin's The City We Became, cities take human form. They have souls. The concept itself stuck with me, and I remembered the whole city souls again here. Then a painting of Singer Sargent popped into my mind. Smoke of Ambergris. The color palette, or maybe a cooler blue tone version of that, would be close to what I imagine here. The Singer Sargent painting from earlier also then reminded me of another visual element that I'd love to include. So a couple days later I sketched some more at home. Here a face framed by changut, a traditional coat-like piece of clothing often worn over the head like a veil. I imagine a white version of it here, as if for a funeral, disappearing into more apartment buildings. To be very honest with you, this pose idea here came to me while I was brushing my teeth. I'd reached over for the light switch and saw that arm and shoulder in the mirror, and I think a pose like this, with little houses sprouting like mushrooms from the skin, could be strangely beautiful and a bit haunting. I do love some gothic horror and even subtle body horror in my art, after all. Slowly, the ideas are coming together. Sitting on those first sketches for a couple nights already brought me new ones. Do you think I should give the electricity cable sketch another try? Let me know, as I'm feeling pretty unsure about that one. Maybe that's something for a future, different series instead. You can see that there's still zero color information on these sketches. I just used some random colored pencils for the two portraits and kept the rest in pencil. So while I'm leaning to lots of gray tones, I might experiment more with color combinations, be it monochrome or something like tanjong, the traditional Korean 5-color palette. I will absolutely need a cohesive color palette to tie all of these together so they don't look disjointed on a wall, but honestly my brain just doesn't want to bother with that yet. What do you think? Could you see these paintings working on canvas? Do they fit the feelings I talked about? In illustration, the artist often tells a very concrete story, while for fine art, I have to laugh at myself for even using that word. It's more about an emotion, an impression, and leaving lots of room for interpretation. At least, that's how I think of it. There's also this painting by Wyeth called The Giant, and the cloudscape and sense of scale, if not the color palette, are coming to mind for some of these, like the figure sitting next to a giant version of these roof statues. For some reason, I can't stop imagining one of these portraits sipping a drink from a convenience store. Sitting outside in summer with banana uyu or ice cream is apparently deeply ingrained in me at this point, so I might as well go with the flow. Bringing in the historical elements and modern elements also works as kind of connective tissue with my fantasy illustrations. I also took a moment to sketch what the arrangement of these could look like on a gallery wall. It looks like we'll have each nearly 2 meters of space, which is very scary. I paint so small usually, so I probably need 1 or 2 key paintings, large enough to fill the space instead of being lost in it. And then smaller paintings to complete the arrangement. Suddenly I was back to those first floating house sketches I'd made. They'd be perfect floating above the other paintings, as if they'd detached and decided to go off on their own. I also have my travel sketches from Seoul and will be heading there again for a family event next week, so I hope to take more pictures as references. Sketchbook pages like these, even if they were just for practice, are great resources later on. As it's difficult to find frames and unique canvas sizes here in Jeju, I also want to plan for those. Instead of frames, I could go with deeper canvas and paint the edges to complete each painting. I also went back to thinking about gold leaf embellishments, something that's a part of my mythology art series, and might be an interesting touch on otherwise very muted paintings. This sketchbook session was a bit different from what I usually show here, but it's just as much a part of the process as the actual paintings, or the studies I sketch for them that might look nicer than these doodles here. Over just a few sketchbook pages and a couple hours of focus, I went from having only the vaguest idea to a clear map of what to do next. And that's really the hardest part of the process for me. Thank you so much for watching this love letter to a city, and I hope to see you in my next art video.